Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners. Just want to give you a little information about the mission of the Newsa-Cast. Our mission stems from the mission of the Red Smith Banquet, and that mission was to support youth sports in the Fox Valley. Over the 57 years of its existence, we have been honored to give out over $1 million to various youth sports organizations throughout the Fox Valley. The Newsa-Cast is looking to continue that mission and support youth sports as well. You can help us do that by donating to the Newsa-Cast and the Red Smith Sports Banquet.
On today's Newsa-Cast, Tosh and I finish off a series of safety in football. We bring on Nick Salm. He takes a look at a coaching perspective for us. We take an old look at new like usual, presented by Raleigh Winter and Associates. Tosh and I, we end the show like we always do with a little It's Forgotten and I'm Never Forgetting. So what do you say, folks? Let's finish off this series and let's get this show on the road.
When they came out with the helmet, they started using it as a weapon. Yeah, it's the single worst invention or change into football in history.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, welcome to another episode of the Newsa-Cast. We're excited because we are wrapping up our three-part series on safety in football. It wasn't very long ago that, I remember going to a meeting and really discussing why kids should or shouldn't play football. And we've had great series the past 3 weeks, and we're wrapping it up today with Nick Salm talking about the coaching perspective.
It's kind of cool, Tosh, how this worked, isn't it? We didn't even really plan this. All of a sudden, Mike Draheim gets us lined up with Clint Brightman of a helmet company, Zenith, and that led to Jeff Chambers. And
right.
Holy cow, football is safer. And then, you got to bring Nick back on, our first recurring guest. And, just get into tying it all together because Nick certainly can speak to the coaching perspective. And I thought we did a pretty good job of tying it together. A nice little 3-part series of safety in football.
Yeah, and if you're just tuning in, and this is your first episode, or you didn't hear the last two, go back a couple weeks. Go back many weeks and listen to all of them. But go back a couple weeks and listen to these three-part series because we've come a long way in the last 10 years in football as far as techniques and coaching and how to tackle, how to protect the body. The equipment has just made an evolutionary change. Yeah. It's incredible. So it's a good series, and I hope our listeners enjoy talking a little football.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well worth the listen. We appreciate the listen. We really do. And help us out. Leave a review, like and subscribe. Follow us on social media too. Lindsay sometimes she'll take clips of what some of our guests are talking about, some of the stuff that Tosh and I just talked about. She'll post that on social. So like those as well. Newsa-Cast, find us anywhere, Tosh, right? We're everywhere when it comes to that. And 3-part series of just football is getting safer. Definitely. So Tosh, before we get into that, how was your weekend? I know you did a little traveling this weekend, being a lacrosse dad.
First I want to just mention Melissa and I went to Door County on Wednesday. Just took a little door trip, just a day trip, whichever you want to call it.
Like a door trip
up to Door County. Nice. And I tell you what, there are some fabulous places we went to, and I want to mention a couple of them. There's a small little brewery in outside Sister Bay called Peach Farm Brewing, which was awesome. It was a small little brewery, and from that brewery, we got to talk about another one, and we stopped at, which was Sway. And Sway is incredible because Sway they use their own yeast and microbes to make these really cool beers. Like they wild ferment their beer. It's really a cool process. If you're ever in Bailey's Harbor, check that out. And also the distillery in Egg Harbor, Hatch Distillery, it uses a lot of ingredients right from Door County, including a lot of bees, which is close and near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
They make all their own meads, and they have their honey for their honey bourbon. If you're in Door County, check any of those 3 places out. They're fabulous and just a lot of fun to go to.
How is Door County with the road? Are the roads different now, or is there still construction?
No,
All
everything.
good?
We had no construction. It was fabulous. It was a nice trip up. Had a great day. It was beautiful on Wednesday. It was only like 70 degrees, so it was perfect.
Yeah.
Just love making that trip up there a little bit. It's a great area. It doesn't feel like you're in Wisconsin. It's cool.
You see John Burr?
No, I did not.
He's a good Door County guy.
Okay.
I don't know why that name popped in my head, Tosh.
Nope, don't know.
All right, so you went from Door County. You and Melissa enjoyed a day in Door County, and you headed down to Madison for a little lacrosse action. Brought some hardware back. So.
We got to shout out Coach Zandroga and his Construct program, because this was the end tournament at the Madison Classic in Verona, and the high school national team, which are all basically juniors and I don't know, they're 25 graduates, so they'll be graduating this year. They won their brackets, and the regional team, which are 26 and 27 graduating class, they won their bracket as well. So Construct took home both of the high school brackets for this tournament, which is awesome. It was a great summer for Construct lacrosse.
Oh, that's fantastic. Again, Tosh, we got to shout out our own podcast. Go back and listen to Coach. We have him on. He's actually on twice, right? We talked one's more specifically towards Construct, but great guy, great dude, starting the Lawrence program, but in the meantime, the summer program. And that's really cool to hear, Tosh. I love that these kids got to played a lot of the same tournaments that a lot of the previous kids have played through different programs. That's cool. Kick alphas, you know what? You're good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Love that. Well, I don't miss those days of officiating, that's for sure. Tosh, I know in theory I should have more time to go to things like Paper Fest and Jones Park and Farmers Market, things like that. And I haven't had time to do any of it for whatever reason, but all of that's going on. I know Paper Fest, Diggstown, our house band played there. We've got a surprise coming up. One of our interviews, actually, you and I are going to do tomorrow night. We're excited about, but let's just say they're playing at many of these events as well. Right. That band or a couple of those bands are, just a little teaser, Tosh. You know what I'm saying?
Joe, we took some advice from you, and we went down to the Lights the Night markets. Downtown Appleton. Had a good time. We saw the flamethrowers. We saw the snake handlers.
Nice.
And lots of good food as well. So that was a very cool event on Friday night as well.
Got to shout out our own podcast again. We talked to Jennifer Stefani about that, but no, that's cool. You did that, Tosh. I wasn't able to make it. I was actually, I talk about it in a little later segment, Forgetting and Forgotten. I was at Shakespeare at Appleton North, but no, a fantastic, again, perfect weather. And it's a unique event downtown. The lights just add a different element, and all the food trucks, Tosh. My God, there's the smells. That's what and I got to shout 2 episodes in a row. Our friend Tolland, who's a big fan of the Newsa-Cast, first met him at the very first Light the Nights this year. So it has a magical place for us, that downtown magic.
Yeah, that goes all the way back to downtown, Appleton Downtown Incorporated as well, right?
Shout out Jennifer Stefani for the downtown magic.
Anything else happening in your world, Joe?
That's about it, Tosh. I've just been a letter carrier. Been working on a little podcast called the Newsa-Cast, a little Shakespeare action. But no, I've been pretty quiet. I'm kind of getting amped up for Mile of Music. That's around the corner. The app is live now. The schedule is out. So this is the time where I kind of sit on my back porch and I start listening to a lot of Mile of Music, the artists that are coming. So that's pretty much my life these days. And yeah, one more week of work, and then I've got a week off. So that's what my focus is on.
Much needed week off, right?
Oh my goodness. Nobody wants to hear anybody complain about their work schedule, but holy cow, I need a week off.
We got other excitement going on in the Fox Valley as well. We got Packer training camp starting this week.
Yeah. Tosh, I mean, you got to be excited for football. It's in some senses, you're a little bit sad that summer is coming to an end, but fall is a great time of year, and football makes it special. So, yeah, whether we like it or not, football's here.
Football is here. Yeah, lots of teams are doing contact days this week.
Yeah.
For the start of football coming up in a couple weeks.
This is going to be a different football season for me, Tosh. No officiating, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
you can just go out and watch some games.
Or I could just go out hiking somewhere and not watch any games.
There you go.
Yes.
Or you can go yell at the refs.
Could do that too. That'd be a change of pace. What are you, blind? All right, Tosh. Well, let's finish off the episode of Safety in Football. And folks, I hope you enjoy this. Just thanks for hanging in there with us. It, I think, turned into a pretty decent series if you want to educate yourself in how football is getting safer. It's that time again, once again, for an old look at new, brought to you by Raleigh Winter and Associates, celebrating 55 years. Did you know that in 1962, an Appleton junior high school teacher with a strong work ethic started a residential realty company? His name, Raleigh Winter. 3 generations later, the Winters still hold true to a strong work ethic and an excellent reputation in the community. Today, Raleigh Winter and Associates remain actively involved in providing retail, office, and industrial users an affordable, well-designed working environment through the creation and/or acquisition of quality real estate in the Fox cities and even beyond new. So what do you say? Let's take an old look at new.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it is time for that look at history here in Wisconsin, here in the Fox Valley. Joe, what are you looking at this week?
Well, Tosh, keeping with the football theme that we have going, safety and football here for 3 episodes. One of the things that I've always loved about football, I've loved just like the stats, the PR. Lee Remmel was a longtime PR director. And I've often been fascinated. The Packers publish every week. It's a thing called the Dope Sheet. Love the name. But it goes back to 1921. And I believe you can get it online. It's basically what it is every week. That it comes out, I think, on Monday. It's just a preview of the next week's game. Everything you need to know, whether you're in TV production, radio production, media, print, whatever. It's all laid out for you. Injuries, updates, everything. The Dope Sheet, the dope on the game. Well, that started in 1921, Tosh. Packer fans will recognize this name, George Calhoun, who was basically the owner of the Green Bay Press-Gazette. He started it. The first one was printed in 1921, Saturday, October 9th, 1921. Big picture, Curly Lambeau. Looks like a big fat head. Beautiful haircut on Curly. Looks great. It's titled The Dope Sheet. And that's lived on ever since. And I'm a big fan of what Lee Remmel did with it back all through the 90s, 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And it still lives on. So The Dope Sheet, Tosh, it's everything you need to know about the Green Bay Packers.
I think a lot of sports teams do that too, right? I mean, I think NHL has that, and I know they look at that for who they're playing and things like that. So yeah, that's cool. They cool.
All definitely do that for sure. The press kit. I not knowing this for sure, but I'm going to call it a fact. I got to believe the Packers started at George Calhoun. I mean, 1921. It's basically what it is, a press kit for 1921. What the hell? I'm going to give them credit for starting it.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear about it if they didn't.
That's right. All 6 listeners. Steve Klein will fact check us. Steve,
absolutely.
Put you to task. All right, Tosh. Well, my old look at new gets fact checked. How about you? What are you going to take a look at?
We're going back to July 25th, 1999. So not as far back as I usually go, but July 25th, 1999, the one and only Robin Yount became the first player inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in a Brewers jersey.
Yeah, that's nice. Number 19. Yeah. Man, Rockin' Robin. Love that guy. One of my all-time favorite. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Growing up, it was him and Paulie, him and Molitor,
Yeah.
Those are the 2 guys. And everybody else, great teams. You had Gantner, you had Cecil Cooper, you had, you could go
Charlie Moore, Rob Deere, all those guys.
Yeah. They were fantastic. But Robin Yount, that's
Ben Ogilvy.
Ben Ogilvy, yeah, absolutely. You play your entire career with the same team.
Sixto Lascano.
Yep. and you win 2 MVPs at 2 different positions.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes on. People don't realize that. Absolutely. Yeah. He came up at, what was he, 18 when he started playing shortstop for the Brewers? And the guy never changed. He still actually looks the same, just lean, long, lean, runs like a deer.
He was fun. There's only one of him. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Only one of him. All right, Tosh, another good one. An old look at new, presented by Raleigh Winter and Associates.
All right, today we get to take a look at the coaching's perspective of the safety that goes in football, Joe, and we sit down in an interview with the starter of the Appleton youth football, Nick Salm.
Yeah, he. The great thing about Nick, he's been a coach for 25 and 27 years. I forgot what he said, but it's been a long time. He started the AYFA, like you said, but while he was doing that, he actually studied all of this, learned how the helmets worked, how the Cato collar worked, how all of these things worked. And then all during this time, and we talk about this too, right? As all the coaching philosophy and the way football was played was changing and how it was taught. So we covered it all. It's a great interview, Tosh. So enjoy Nick Salm. But this particular series, I mean, it just kind of unfolded. I mean, it started with, it started back when you started the AYFA with, meeting Clint Brightman and the helmets and just kind of taking an understanding, because you dove all in on helmets and equipment. Yep. And you shared that information with me during that time, and I was just fascinated by it even then. You and I had tons of conversations about that. But then leap ahead, and you get Mike Draheim, and Mike's become a great friend and a big fan of what we do here. So he's connected us or reconnected us with people, with Clint. So we, what the heck? It's a great topic, because at the end of the day, all three of us love football, but football, like we've said, was under attack. Well, let's put together a freaking college paper and show, in audio form, and show you guys, look, football is getting safer. Let's start with a helmet. This is what they're doing with helmets. It's amazing stuff. And then you meet a guy like Jeff Chambers, who, invents something that reduces the risks of concussions by over 30%. I mean, come on. Yeah, how can you argue with that? And then you go back to Clint, and he talks about the new shoulder pads that they have designed, and all of a sudden you've got these 3 things that are protecting the head. And the AYFA numbers are basically 0 concussions for years now. And it's being taken out of the game. It's a shame that it happened. I mean, it's terrible. I hate that all of our heroes are either dead or not doing well. It sucks, but at least we're making a change. So we're proving it. So we wanted to kind of have you on the show to kind of from a coach's perspective, because to tie it all together, because that's a huge component of this. How you teach and coach football has changed drastically in 20 years, as long as this equipment has changed. And then we could have an official on. I could speak to the rules a little bit, but the rules have also changed. And we've sort of mentioned it when we talked to Clint and to Jeff, but we really wanted that coach's perspective, your perspective. I mean, you've been doing this for a quarter of a century. You've been a football coach almost your whole life, your whole family. I mean, you're the perfect guy. Plus you know the people that we've talked to, you understand how the equipment works, but really wanted you to just kind of tie a bow around this and just come at it and just let's talk about, football is safer. It's okay to have your kids play football again.
Yeah, well, interesting you bring up Jeff Chambers. The AYFA was actually one of the first companies orgs to come forward and actually donate towards the development of the Cato collar. We sent him a bunch of money. He sent me a couple prototypes, and we used them on some kids that had some neck issues and so on. Yeah, we went from the first year of the AYFA, this would be 2016. There were 15 concussions in middle school football the year before, and 15, and we had 1 in 2016, and we had nearly twice as many kids playing. And that was 6th, 7th, and 8th, and the previous stat was just 8th. So it was a significant change, so bringing me on, I guess I'm more the implementation part of this, right?
Right. Right.
So you have the development, you have the sales, you have the equipment out there, but then are you going to use it and are you going to implement it and put it into your program? So in about 2012, I think, there's a lot of credit that goes out. And you named a bunch of, Clint is a nerd just like I am on this stuff. But Draheim, trying to fix injuries through his training, exceptional training and just understanding movement of the body. All these coaches, Rob and Mark and going back to Schwanke and Paul Ingen and all of those guys that have been around, nobody wants to see that big hit anymore. And even back in the day, I remember Aaron Klein, man-child. There was a small kid cut back. It was Appleton West at home versus Oshkosh West. This kid cuts back right into Aaron Klein running full speed. Probably got 1.5 feet on him and probably 100+ pounds on him, and just destroys this kid. Jumps up and he's celebrating a big hit, and this kid's not moving. And Engen's out on the field waving his arms. No, get away. So way back in the day already, we didn't want to celebrate guys not getting up. I think at the higher levels, I think it gets so intense. I think there's so much on the line. I think we did do some of that. I think you referenced the Chuck Cecils and that sort of thing, the Atwaters and those guys. Mm-hmm. I think they did thrive on that a bit, but I think they're one-offs. The Junior Seau thing, you mentioned some of our heroes not being around anymore. I don't remember him doing that. But, I think the attack is over. I know at the middle high school level, I think the stats have really come out because of football was put a bullseye on the biggest one or the most popular one at the time. And the truth is going to come out. And I think it did, where football really wasn't that. I guess the shocking part, learning that football is approximately number 4 or 5, depending, as far as total concussions annually. Right. And, there are 3 in front that I really haven't seen any change. Now, I don't know how you change basketball. Most of those guys are bouncing their heads off a hard floor. I don't know how you change basketball, but soccer, not putting, some kind of a cushion beanie on, it's interesting. So football has swung that pendulum so far the other way. We're not just wearing helmets that are 1,000 times better technology wise. We're wearing guardian caps over those. We're our amount of contact, full contact part of our practices is down to like 20 minutes. Like we don't.
Yeah, Nick, can you speak to that specifically? Like even 10 years ago, I mean, you think, we're approaching opening of the football season here in 2 weeks.
Yep.
And you think of those hot summer days and you have 2-a-days, man. You're there at whatever, 7 to 10, you're practicing, and again from 3 to 5 or whatever the times are, but it's 4 hours of football out in the hot blazing sun and you're not drinking water. It's kind of, that's not too far from the truth 10, 12 years ago, but that's drastically changed now. Yeah. The way the high school and the trickle down, and even the NFL, obviously we follow that's all changed. They hardly touch each other anymore.
Yeah, well, the Corey Stringer rule. I mean, it changed heat, overheating. It changed a lot of those things. And sad, like when our heroes had to suffer like they did for us to come to realization. But that's kind of how it's always been. We follow USA football very closely. The WI, I think, adopts a very similar strategy, but it's all governed. Like you actually have to have your practice plan, itinerary, whatever. It actually has to have the scheduled water breaks. It has to have the designation of the type of contact you're having. No contact drills for how many minutes? Thud drills. And then, your full contact, you're limited. You really don't get much. So the days of just having 45 minutes of scrimmaging towards the end of the practice, it doesn't happen anymore. You end up with a 5-minute segment of run, 5 minutes of pass, 5 minutes of third down, we're at a bigger school. So it's probably a little different across the board because we're 2 platoon. Our offensive guys are over there doing their 20 minutes differently. and at the same time, our defense is doing the same 20 minutes. So we don't have, some of these teams, the smaller teams, they got to figure out 20 minutes, or do they do 40 minutes? I'm sure their rules are just a little different because they got a lot of guys playing both ways. But for us, it's a 2 platoon, so we're limited 20, 25 minutes. Depends on what time of the week it is too, and then we're just learning so much. We don't, you're not conditioning, you're not doing stuff towards the end of the week. You're trying to let them get their legs back. We've learned so much about the body.
That's a good transition. I mean, the athletes now are training different, even and all of this has made the game safer. So you don't now have as much contact because, well, maybe you're practicing the same amount of hours. That practice structure is different. You don't have the contact like you did. You don't have the wear and tear on the body. Maybe some of it's spent in the weight room or something, but it's different. So it's safer and better for the body. And then you couple that with the equipment and the helmets, and now the game is safer. But now the coaches are also teaching the techniques are different. So I guess I think of the hawk tackle, the Seahawks. I don't even know what year that would have been, but everybody talked about the hawk tackle. But the theory behind it was a safer tackle. It took the head out of the game. Was that basically the start, would you say, of kind of when you saw a different way of playing football could happen and it could still be football?
Yeah, well, you're always going to have the old guard trying to protect, and they like when they had the big hits. But we're at a unique situation where when I got involved with Pop Warner and we got that award for one of the first 100% committed safety organizations in the nation. I think that was 2012 already, where they had Fox Pop Warner had committed a director to specifically address safety. And when they first did it, the hawk tackle wasn't part of it. They were going more towards changing all the terminology, taking the head out. When it first hit, it was taking a right shoulder tack. And if you can imagine, as I go through this, a right shoulder, left shoulder tackle, where you bring your shoulder to the ball carrier, you're actually taking your head with it. If you change the word shoulder to chest, it immediately takes the head out. It's that simple. And then we started learning more of the near hip. The near hip was probably the biggest revelation in trying to remove, because once you brought that near hip in, it actually gave the hawk tackle is what the Seahawks called it. It's really the rugby tackle. And if you look at rugby, they don't wear helmets. They don't wear shoulder pads. So they have to do things a little differently from a health standpoint on how they make tackles. And they're pretty aggressive. And you saw how they were tackling. And so they were putting the head behind the carry, but they were driving a near hip to their near hip and trying to take the leverage out.
So so is that hip to hip? They're going hip to hip. They're using their hip as the power point to drag them down.
Correct. Yeah. You're going to drive your hip under and through their hip. So you're stepping your right hip or whatever the hip is towards the tackle. And you want to get your hip on leverage to get their hips off the ground. And when you think of that whole process, you're actually creating a lot of safe opportunity. And what we found was you can still make incredibly explosive tackles and both guys jump right up, because it's that you're taking the leverage off, and then you got that roll tackle, and they're teaching that. The Seahawks called it the hawk tackle and made it famous, and which is an amazing thing that they were able to bring that to USA Football. And USA Football has over 125,000 coaches that subscribe to that annually. And so you're really, your touch on that is really broad. It's nationwide, and it's an outstanding way to do it. I don't think they even go with the hawk tackle as far as that anymore. They do seem to change things up from time to time. But that was one of the first things they started doing, was just trying to change how you block, how you tackle, and trying to take the head out, and then changing some of the language. That was part of it. And then it was, where they started was properly fitting them, teaching how to actually fit a helmet, fit a shoulder pad. So they
Clint talked about that. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. It's huge.
Well, in Clint, that whole thing has morphed into this monster. So it's interesting, right? We talk about how helmet safety and the improvement in technology is so, and it's come so far. You realize helmet was actually the worst thing that ever happened to the NFL?
Right.
It really was. When they created it, they ended up putting a sticker on the back, "Do not butt, ram, or spear." We all had to read that. Remember when we were in middle school, we had to read that tag. And it was because when they came out with the helmet, they started using it as a weapon. So it actually that was the single most injurious invention or inclusion into football in history.
In the 20s, then, when they were wearing leather helmets, are they tackling different?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I never realized. I never even thought of that.
Yeah, it's the single worst invention or change in football was when they did that. Remember, they came out first, they didn't have a face mask, they just had a hard shell.
Yeah.
And then they came out, they had a face mask, and then they had the giant face mask, and then they had, next thing you know, these guys were starting everything. Even when you blocked, you start with get your face mask to the block guy you're going to block, and then ram your hands through. And so it was like, holy cow. Now, when we started looking, and when I first started coaching, we were still coaching the same way we learned.
Right.
I'm entering into my 27th year, and when in 2012 was the first time. So you're right, Joe. We're not quite to 15 years yet, and the amount of changes and how wonderful the game is being played. My biggest frustration happened, I think, in 2014. Is we had made so many strides. We had no concussions, and we had so many things to brag on ourselves about the changes we had made at the youth level and how it was trickling up. The NFL's goal was to spend the money and then trickle it all the way up so that you started teaching how to play the game differently, and eventually it gets to the NFL. And then you were controlling it somewhat with officiating. But then what happened, and you guys can imagine this, you're watching a game and you got this old football player as a color commentator, and he's celebrating exactly the hit we're trying to get rid of.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, that's an old school football play, and he's celebrating like crazy. And I'm sitting there going, oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I just taught all these kids that are listening to you that that's not the way to do it. Now you're the professional advice giving and you're telling them that we're teaching it wrong. And so I actually sent a note up to NBC and said, you got to be careful. You got to start having these guys understand that we are doing things differently at the youth level.
It's actually one of the questions I wanted to talk to you about is just that fundamental change, because the folks know I don't officiate anymore, but I officiated all through this change from the old school, the way, everything we just talked about. That's the way I grew up with football. That's the way I officiated football. That's a great hit, big hit. There's no flag there. Kind of a thing to what we have now. I officiated both lacrosse and football through those rule changes. And it's hard. The hardest thing, it takes a while for the coaches. It takes a while for everybody to understand.
Yep.
But it's interesting that there's a lot of coaches you have to educate that took them a long, long time. You don't find them too many anymore, but every once in a while you run into a guy or a girl that still coaches the old-fashioned way. But the parents, you still get the reaction to the big hit. Oh, that's a legal play. How can that be a flag? When no, just you can't do those types of big hits anymore. The head's not part of the game, all of that, but you still get that reaction, and that change is difficult. And I know you've dealt with that from a coaching standpoint. I mean, people don't talk about that from a coaching standpoint, what you guys have to deal with. I talk about it a lot from the officials, the parents and all of that, but you guys have it 10,000 times more than anybody else. They attack you for some of that, and you're making the changes that need to be made to get us to where we are now.
Yeah, the worst part of that, Joe, is there's a young man or woman that you've been working with, and you've been teaching and teaching and teaching, and they're going home and they're being told that they're being taught wrong. And so that trickle down of the coaches not being able to coach their kids exclusively, but I'll say, to 80. That's an 80-20 thing, and I think it's much less than 20. I do think it's a small percentage today.
Yeah.
The best thing about football has always been that it's very detached from parents. And parents, I think the funnest part that we always do is we go through in our preseason, we actually go through a play call and show how much is going on, how much terminology is given just in one play, all the adjustments that it made, everything else, and just to prove to the parents that they really have no idea how much goes on and how much is involved. And then sometimes it's just throwing it in there to say, just let us do this because it's more complicated than you can ever imagine.
Right. Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.
Do you think with all the changes that have been made, the skill level of football has increased?
Well, the number one, availability, right? The best ability is availability. And I think that, knowing that those big hits aren't allowed, I think you can play a little more fearless. And I think the biggest detriment to playing football is fear. And we preach and teach and preach and teach and hope they understand, trust that if you play with fear, your chances of getting hurt are actually much higher. So yeah, I do think they're maximizing their abilities finally because we are eliminating some of those big hits. I mean, the big explosive plays now, everybody gets up. And I don't think we've changed on the ACL injury at all. I don't think we've changed a ton on the AC to the shoulder injury a ton. But I think the head injuries for sure. I think the most head injuries are coming from the ground, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking that as you were saying that. I mean, I don't want to keep saying this, but this is what we're doing. We're tying all 3 of these episodes together. You're teaching the game different, and all the coaches that you coach with, you teach the game now the proper way, the proper techniques. Their head is being taken out of the game, but the fact is, people's legs still get tangled up, especially a quarterback or a running back, and they do fall backwards or fall forward and can't catch themselves. And that's where then the equipment takes over: the helmet, the Cato collar, the shoulder pad. And that's what I want people to kind of understand, that that's really, really, really changed. I mean, it's accelerated in the last 6 years, I would say, certainly in the span of the AYFA. This equipment just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, and I think that that one off of the ground causing concussions. Brian Morgan started coming to our running back meetings Tuesday nights. We'd watch film for about an hour and a half, and we would talk. And the quarterback started coming to this meeting. So then Brian Morgan's our quarterback coach, and he came to the meeting, and I was teaching the guys through film, and then we'd go out to the practice field the next day and kind of go through some of it, but actually teaching guys how to fall. So we had a quarterback who's working on all these fundies, right? He's A, B, C, D drills and doing everything. But we actually teach kids how to fall, like how to fall and not get hurt, and how to twist and get yourself to a position where you're not having your head hit the ground. We did have one neck injury that took our running back out, but we haven't had a running back concussion in a long time. And that goes way back to, before Steve Likvis even. I mean, we haven't had any running back head injuries because you got to teach them how to fall. You got to teach them how to block and how that aggressiveness is getting those hands out in front of you. And then giving up ground for that recoil, so you don't have to get caught up in the middle of a guy who's bigger than you. But there are just many techniques that we've learned to try to help them stay healthy from the neck up as much as the neck down. And a lot of that is falling, but you're right. With the technology part, I think is eliminating a lot of those seeing stars. I just think that, and I think the severe concussions are going away. I think when you see them, there may be something to somebody who's prone to more concussions, just whether it's a fluid brain type thing. I think we still have that as the one-offs, but the equipment, I think, is eliminating a lot of these issues. I think the equipment is starting to eliminate some of those AC joints. You throw the Cato collar on, Ben Isom, we had some issues with a couple of years ago. He threw that Cato collar on and we just let him go. I mean, he was out and he just felt so much more comfortable because that Cato was on. So any guys that, and Ben had a stinger, it wasn't a concussion, but you get that stinger and what's the next thing because you're favoring one side and then you end up, with maybe another injury or even a concussion. But, we threw the Cato collar on a couple different kids. Seems to be more linebackers. I think Bobby Salm wore one and played a little running back with it too. It doesn't like change how you play at all. And that's the uniqueness of it, that you don't want to take away. So remember the horse collars or those cowboy collars and all that?
Yeah, we talked about that. The stealthness kind of, and the look, the aerodynamic kind of feel and look to the Cato collars is, I think the kids say that's sick, right, Nick?
Yeah, right.
Hey, well, you brought something up that really I'm fascinated by, and we've actually talked about this exact thing on how to fall. Yeah. On the Newsa-Cast. And it goes back to our roller derby episode. And our good friend Deviled Meg taught us this. She's a physics teacher at Lawrence, and she is what's called the jammer in roller hockey. Okay. And she's basically the running back going through the line of scrimmage. You're a running back, but you have to learn how to fall. Yeah. And that's exactly what she thinks about. It's all physics, and she kind of, it's fascinating that you think of the same thing. It's underrated. It's huge. People don't really think about it, but learning how to fall, they talk about it, Tosh, in lacrosse sometimes as well. Yeah. I think another component of it is just awareness, your body awareness. Wide receivers do this. I'm always fascinated. It's trickled down to the high school game with how good these wide receivers are with keeping their feet in bounds on sideline catches. Right. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. They're so athletic in the awareness that these kids have now. It really blows my mind every single time.
Yeah, they're really a bunch of wonderful people out there that are changing the bodies and changing, but you mentioned Mike Draheim and Cam Bott and Brian Bott and all those guys that are out there training kids. It's just, so I have a son obviously out at Augustana and watching how they do things. And, those injuries are a lot of wear and tear, and you don't have as much of that in high school. It's interesting. We talk about, how the game evolved a little bit. If you go back to, we mentioned the Steve Lykevises, the Hebkeys, the Sartorellis, some of those guys we used to have back, 2007, 2012, somewhere in there. Those guys were carrying the ball 35 to 40 times a game. Yeah. And, none of them went on. Sartorelli went on, but hardly any of those guys went on. And we would talk to them after the season and be like, you should play at the next level. You could, blah, blah, blah. None of them wanted to because they were so beat up. That took such a burden on their bodies. And we're like, wow, my brothers and I sat down and, Paul Engen came and said, well, we could try pistol. We could try something a little bit different where we spread it out some and we, we're not just power wear a team down like we used to. So, part of scheming has evolved too, to try to keep kids healthy, keep, keep your team healthy.
Mhm.
Because at the time, if Sardo or any of those guys went down, those are all level 3, level 4 teams. Those were all excellent football teams.
Yeah.
A touchdown away from going to state type teams. And we made some, wholesale changes to spreading it out, throwing it around a bit, figuring out how to, not just slam guys in, because it wasn't just the running back. I mean, our guards were undersized. They get worn down. They get beat up. Everybody gets beat up. So I think a lot of scheming, there's been a change to the game scheme-wise, equipment-wise, fundamental-wise. I mean, everything has changed since, right in that 2012 range. Now you see these wide open offenses where they don't even have running backs. And it's all spread, Texas spread. You get all, and it's fun to watch because there's scoring. There's,
I think that's what Tosh was hinting at, right? The game is in a really, really good place, right? It made the changes it had to make. 99.999% of us accept those rules and love those rules and just understand this is the way football is now at all levels, all three, youth, high school, college, pro. But the game is awesome, right? It's changed, but it's better. It's faster. It's quicker. It's more scoring. It's all of that at all the levels. I mean, these are just exciting. It's more athletic, right? They get to showcase their athleticism all the time, every play.
Yeah, and we're all fantasy people now, right? So when Nick Chubb got hit, I mean, it was kind of like a collective sigh through everywhere because it was just awful. It was like he's a great
number 1 draft choice. Yeah,
great
that didn't hurt
man.
my team at all.
Yeah, well, he's a great man, and he's a great professional, and he's a guy you just root for, and to see him get hit like that and see him get hurt like that is just, it crushes you, right? And you're not taking that play out of the game. I don't know how you do. It's just one of those coincidentals that just kind of leave you. I think that's just going to be part of our game, but. I think the biggest frustration with some of these kids that play the Maddens or whatever these games are, video games now, is they see all this wide open stuff and then they can't do it at the 5th and 6th grade. They don't have the arms. They don't have, So it's like patience. Just learn these little fundamentals. Just learn winning and losing really actually doesn't matter. And I know it does to you, but it really doesn't at the end of the day. So
I think what you bring up there is a key point, is that now you're starting to see those fundamentals taking place at a younger age. And by having those fundamentals when they come up to Appleton football in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, then you start seeing those fundamentals come up to the high school. That changes the way you do things as well.
Yeah, so we notice it, so we've had a segment with Appleton North. Our varsity coaches have been meeting on Tuesday nights with all the youth coaches at Appleton North, so the Charger program, 6, 7, and 8, and going through and starting to work on, where they want them to get our incoming freshmen. We want them to be able to block this. We want them to be able to understand our short passing game. We want them to understand our pin and pull offense or power offense, inside zone, that sort of thing. Is just learning all this terminology. Because I think the bigger thing when you're a freshman and you're starting to grow finally is knowledge, having knowledge of your scheme, having knowledge going into it. You're bigger and faster, but the guy across from you is too, and now you know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, you're running kind of loose, and that's when injuries happen too. It's like, well, you're not supposed to be there, and that's so there is part of that is teaching the fundamentals, where to be, knowing, and the safety element that comes from that, because you get bigger, faster, stronger, and it's obviously you go to the college level and that's a whole lot different, but at the high school level, if you can get these guys to understand where they're supposed to be, that's a huge safety element for us.
And I think another piece that we've kind of touched on is just the training that these athletes are doing now as well. I mean, in the last 10, 15 years, training has taken a huge step up, and you're seeing that with our athletic trainers as well as our strength and conditioning people at the high schools as well.
Yeah, kids are definitely bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been, and it's more. So like when we were going through, in the 1900s, we had 25 guys that would go and train at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Coach Engens, they're blowing the whistle, and and then we hit the weight room and after school, we're doing all that. But that's what now you have 50, 60 kids, and collectively in the program, you got 120, 130, maybe even 140 at North. I think we got 140 kids out. So you got almost all of those kids are either 2-3 sport athletes working all the time, training. Now, all 3 high schools are getting brand new weight rooms, state of the art. North, we went and we looked at a bunch of different options. And I don't know if you've seen University of Michigan's weight room. They got that ramp. I think Rob talked about it. That ramp is training with a turfed ramp in your indoor facility is going to be unbelievable for us.
Oh, really? What's the degree? Like what angle?
I don't recall. It's steep enough, but
yeah.
It's going to have stairs next to it that you can train on. You can run the stairs too, right next to, adjacent to it, but it's got a turfed.
And where's that going to be at North? Where is that going to come off of?
So it's all off the natatorium, that whole area. Yeah. They're gonna build that whole thing out all the way to the road, and then I think the road may even change a little towards the tennis courts there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's everything we talked about too. I mean, we talked about Mike and his training, and certainly you touch on training. Listen to that Jeff Chambers episode. I mean, not only do we talk the Cato Collar, but I mean, this guy's been freaking Division I, has run their athletic training program for a couple of decades. For this guy's got 40 plus years in the business doing it. So. That's incredible, but the facilities that are being built and the access now that well, I mean, frankly, the middle schoolers really have you get access, right? When you're the middle schoolers, the AYFA kids are in the 3 different high schools weight rooms, and Tosh, I know East is getting a new weight room as well, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah, we get those kids coming in now. They come in all winter. Sometimes we do introduction right before winter break, but we get 70 some Chargers that come in all winter long. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. We used to do 4 or 5 days a week, even including Sundays, just to give them the opportunity to get to learn and understand. They're not in there bench pressing. They're in there. Working with a PVC and just learning to activate muscles and learning to
yoga.
We do yoga.
Yeah,
we do all kinds of stuff. But we don't know when they go home what they hear, right? But we do know what they hear when they're with us, and so we take the opportunity to talk about nutrition. Nutrition's a huge part of the body too. You look at the Corey Stringers and all that stuff happened. We've gotten better with supplements and nutrition and everything else. And I think all of that plays a part into the body part where bodies are better. And that's what you guys are talking about here. The bodies are better. They're sound. They're, they're not drinking raw milk like I did, but they are. We do. There's a tremendous commitment, right? Because those are all volunteers. We're all volunteers. This is my 10th year of doing middle school stuff. And the amount of hours is insane, but the amount of difference that we've all made is incredible, right? I mean, the support all the way down. Rob, from day one was ultimately supportive. And when I got pushback of, hey, we want to bring the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders into the weight room at North, well, that's for the high school. Well, we don't have an opportunity at the middle school, so we're going to bring them in. And, they'd push us back, whatever. Now, everybody's welcoming. They write a program for us. They'll do whatever they're so accommodating. Kevin Bleck was part of that. Kashuta's been great. I mean, that whole group, Wes Helgeson, holy smokes, that guy has really just jumped. He doesn't have a kid in the program. None of these guys have kids in our program. I came in and I had a kid in the program that I took through. He was a third grader when I took the safety position at Pop Warner. So I had a reason to go down there and do that. And most of the case, that's the thing. But my kid's in college. Both of my kids are in college. And,
Right.
We're still doing it because we see the impact it makes. And
No, you're right. Guys like Kip and you and
oh, yeah, Kip
a lot of
Gold.
the people in the AYFA and the guys at Pop Warner. I mean, all of those guys have been doing it for decades. It's and you guys have accepted the changes too. I mean, you should be applauded for that. Because every one of you, because all of us, Tosh, like we said, we grew up in that different era of football, accepted the changes, made the changes, and now football's in a much better place. Tosh, I know we could go another hour, but I hope we did a good job. This, series, the Safety in Football series, literally kind of dropped in our lap. We wanted to just, I hope we did it kind of justice to just say that football, like I said before, football is, man, we love this game so much. It's changed. This is what it's like now. Here are all the components that's happened over the last decade to make it safe, to change, to just feel good about football, I think. And I hope we did it justice.
Yeah, 13 years ago or 14, whenever that movie came out, whenever the concussion stuff hit, did you guys also feel, holy crap, we might lose football?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's
That's
no
where we
doubt I
came
had that
from.
feeling at times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say it was even more recent than that. I mean, even when you were starting the AYFA, I mean, that was legit. And then even around COVID as well, right? You're not. It's even gotten a lot more safe since COVID, even in that short amount of time. But the years right around there before and after that, football was definitely in danger. There was parents had choices. They discovered that hey, maybe my kid likes music a little more than he likes sports, and maybe my kid doesn't. I mean, I know several parents that stopped playing maybe a sport, all sports, some sports during that time. And I have no doubt that some of the decision was just that stigma that football's not safe. My kid's going to get a concussion, all of that. And everybody we've talked to and everything we've just talked about has worked really hard to eliminate that, saw the problem and just eliminated it. It took time. All change takes time. Hell, we're learning that as Red Smith, right, Nick?
Sure, certainly are.
So I have one more safety question for you.
Okay.
And I know you guys were one of the first teams in the area to do it, and it's now worked its way up to the NFL, and that's the Guardian Cap.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come about that, and what has that done for the programs as well?
So I wish we could give someone credit that wants to remain anonymous, truthfully. But we had an individual who had kids in the program, both programs, and he saw the things we were doing and working on. And he said, how can I help? What can we do to make better? So on and so forth. And Rob had said, well, we could really use these Guardian caps. They're just coming out. They would help us. We could use them all the time except for games. This is what it was. So he wrote a check out and bought like $6,000, $6,500, whatever it was, worth of Guardian caps for the high school. So we had a guy then at the middle school level that saw varsity the high school doing it. And he said, why aren't our middle schoolers doing that? Well, that's a big price tag. Yeah. He wrote out a check. So two different individuals want to remain anonymous, wrote out checks and put those Guardian caps on everyone. So then the Appleton North Chargers were wearing the Guardian caps, but the AYFA is all three. So we agreed then. So the AYFA purchased Guardian caps for East and West middle school programs to make sure that we're taking care of all the kids. So when they first came out, we kind of knew about them, but those things are like $55, $60 a piece. Mm-hmm. So it adds up really quickly. So the generosity of some people that, really do care about all the things we're doing. We have an incredible community. And they see that. And those Guardian caps, and it was interesting, Joe would recall this. is we go to this scrimmage, this Wisconsin Gridiron kickoff challenge, and all the Chargers come in and they're all wearing Guardian caps and practice jerseys. Everybody else is all gamed up and treating it like a game. And I'm thinking, that's not how we want to treat this. We want to protect our kids in the scrimmage. We're looking to evaluate and give opportunity. And so was it last year, 2 years ago? The majority of the schools are now all wearing Guardian caps at that scrimmage.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, very neat.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear.
I'm glad you brought that up, though. I think the Guardian caps, I don't think the helmet companies quite knew what to do with them. Like they were just unique but the amount of contact that they remove is incredible. You never hear the crack of hitting. Other than shoulder pads maybe. And nostalgic would say I kind of miss that, but knowing what it took away to get rid of it is quite, and it's really an awesome story that we had those individuals step up and help us. And, I hope they listen to this and know that, they somehow were recognized for what they did. But yeah, that's what happened. That's how we got them.
I want to apologize to Clint for asking this question, but does that prolong the life of a helmet? I mean, it's so much less contact. Do you get an extra 2 years out of those before you even have to recondition them?
I think that I am not qualified to answer that, but I could speculate that I don't think that has anything to do with it, because I believe the guts and maybe the composition of the shell have a lifespan. Because everything I've heard is, helmet lasts 10 years. But when Clint and I sit and actually talk, we don't agree. I think we're more in that 6 to 7 years where we see the wear and tear of the guts, the Zenith with the bumpers, and then, the foam with it's just the weathering. They sit, they get hot, they get cold. And so I don't know that I can answer that, but I do believe that the Guardian prolongs the lifespan of a healthy head, not so much the helmet. I don't know. It's an interesting question that I'm sure somebody could answer, but if I had to speculate, that would be my answer.
I just like to ask questions. I'm curious more than anything.
Yeah, well, and I'm a nerd too, not as much as Clint. I mean, he and I can talk for hours and hours and hours. The guy's passion for kids and safety and football is it's unmatched. It's unbelievable. It's such a pleasure with him. And there's some amazing people in the Valley that are just doing some incredible things. You see what's happening with that Challenger football field over there. Kurt,
yeah, that's awesome.
Oh my gosh. What an awesome idea. And he just ran with it. I mean, we have some really unique football things in the Valley. And so all these people, these great people pouring in to fix and prolong and to change and to save football, I guess, per our last topic of conversation, is we all were worried it was going to go away. It's like, oh gosh, they're going to take the helmets off. They're going to turn it into 7-on-7. That's what they're going to do. And it's better now than it was before we started with the changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, Nick D, is speak of just nerding out, geeking out, whatever you want to call it. I love where all of this is at, right? I mean, you have people in the community that step up to provide great facilities to play in, all access. You have great coaches teaching the right way. You have new equipment to make these games safer, but it just all adds to the community. And then you have, all of these folks. Tosh and I have been so lucky to be able to, for over a year, interview so many of these people. You have, and you have the downtown, Inc. and all of the businesses down there coming together and making it a great atmosphere. So if people come, Matt and Hank talks about the tourism, all of that just working together. It's all, man, it's a really, really, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's an awesome community. It's so, I don't know if it's unique, it's home, but it's working. I love it. I love how this is all coming together.
Well, in how it's diversified, like just so in the 70s they said we're small sports town USA, right?
Yeah, we're a music town too. So
now
much.
we're a music town. We're arts with the PAC. Where we got a lot of. I mean, who has Broadway shows come to their little town, right? And
Appleton,
right? And so if you remember back to the 90s, I mean, my goodness, football couldn't have been any bigger. I mean, the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, football in this area, not just Appleton, but this area, football was just ginormous. It was incredible. And I think with Kimberly and Fond du Lac and Neenah and Appleton North, I mean, those are some heavy hitters. And then you got the Xaviers have been making pushes, and obviously Kaukauna, I don't want to leave them out. They've done a wonderful job of bringing that program along. Binsfield's been amazing. But there are just some incredible Oshkosh, University of Oshkosh. I mean, it's just incredible. So, we're really blessed with some amazing people in the area. And then I don't know. We play in the FEA, and the FEA has never been safer. I mean, I mean, we're our best athletes are playing at the end of the season. That's the important part.
Right. Competing for that gold trophy.
Right. Well, this was a blast, though. I really appreciate it, guys. I love that you're putting this out there, because I think if you listen to this and you got a 6-year-old and you're wondering, can he play football? Should he play for sheep? Play football? I hope you give it a chance, because I think it's in a great, great spot.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. And Nick, Tosh and I talked before we hit record. You're a recurring guest. I think you're our first recurring guest in all good podcasts. I mean, everybody knows we talk about Pardon My Take as it's kind of the guiding light for this to some extent, and they always have recurring guests. So you're officially a recurring guest of the Newsa-Cast.
But you'll have to bring me on after I get my book published. It's called
100%.
Called The Coach. It's just just finishing up some stuff. It'll be pretty cool.
A book review. We need to do that for sure. We love that. So, well, Nick, thank you for that perspective and just tying this all together. And what do we have? A couple of days off here to enjoy the rest of the summer, and then it's put that whistle around the neck and get after it.
That's right. Time to start screaming.
Right. That's right. All
Thanks,
right,
guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you are about to hear our throwback, and we have a clip from the 2005 Red Smith Banquet with Ron Wolf. Ron Wolf, obviously the architect of those legendary Packer teams, really brought the Packers back into the limelight. And, this is only a clip, but you can go and listen to our full throwback on Sunday on our YouTube channel. And we encourage you to go there, subscribe, like, and do all those things that you need to do to help us spread the word.
Red Smith Sports Awards Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin, and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
It is a rare privilege and a great personal pleasure to present the 2005 Red Smith Award to Ron Wolf. Congratulations, Ron, and thanks for the memory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There isn't really anybody that good, but you're about to convince me, Lee. Before I begin, I would like to introduce to you the person that made this award possible, my wife, Edie. It was her devotion to duty that enabled me to achieve whatever success I've had in professional football. I certainly would like to thank Mike Reese and the committee for this honor. It is a privilege for me to be able to accept it. And I do so on behalf of all the people who were with the Packers when I was there. It's as much theirs as it is mine, and I thank you for that. Also, I would like to congratulate the Green Bay Packers on their selection of Ted Thompson as general manager. He will add even more stability to the best-run front office in the NFL. Additionally, I would like to thank the fans of the Packers. I shall always remember and cherish the support you gave me and to the Packers, and will never forget your presence and undying loyalty whenever and wherever we played. There are three things of which I am extremely proud, and Lee touched on all of them, but you're going to hear them again. Number one, I was told not to go to Green Bay because it was a can't-win situation up there. And I was a bit amused at that because no one really knew who in the heck I was anyway. But, well, Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea, that's for you older people in there. I have a news flash for you. The Packers are the winningest team in the NFL for the last 12 years. Number two. Think about that. That is utterly remarkable that this town here that was going to fall apart when we had free agency was never going to be able to compete in the National Football League. Since free agency began 12 years ago, the team with the winningest record in the National Football League is your Green Bay Packers. Secondly, the team with the longest string of non-losing seasons is also, you got it, the Green Bay Packers, 13 years. As you know, the Packers are run by an executive committee. Bob Harlan is the CEO. During my second meeting with the committee, the gray ghost, Tony Ganadeo, God rest his soul, said, "We don't expect much up here, just beat them bars." Well, Tony, guess what? We got it started, and now it's 11 straight years and wins in Soldiers Field, the den of those dang Bears. The best thing that ever happened to me professionally was when I became a member of the Green Bay Packers. I shall always be grateful to Bob Harlan for the opportunity he presented to me. What a marvelous heritage to be able to be associated with. You young people that we just honored up here, and all you young people in this wonderful state, have enormous legacy to preserve, protect, and uphold. You must keep that eternal flame glowing in the citadel of professional football, Green Bay, Wisconsin, forever and ever and ever. People have asked me what, thank you. People have asked me what I do with myself now that I'm out of football. I tell them what I want to do when I want to do it. That ain't all bad. General MacArthur tells us youth is not a time of life, it's a state of mind. It's a test of will, a quality of imagination. Nobody grows old by merely living a number of years. People grow old only by deserting their ideals. And in closing, I would like to share with you a quote from William Penn. "I expect to pass through life but once. If therefore there is any kindness I can show or good deed I can do for any fellow being, let me do it now and not defer or neglect it, as I shall not pass this way again." Thank you. God bless you. May God bless America, and may you all reach that unreachable star. Good night.
coming to an end of another great episode. But before we get out of here, it's forgotten, and I'm never forgetting. So, Tosh, what's forgotten in your world?
Well, we just came back from a lacrosse tournament, the Madison Classic down in Verona.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to forget is the cheating by teams by
Oh,
having
really?
Players come down who are not eligible to play in the bracket they're supposed to. And,
did this tournament check rosters?
Just tournament today they did in the championship game, and 5 kids from the other team were declared ineligible. And,
Unbelievable. Not surprised.
It's you know what?
Real.
Here's the thing. Just let your kids frickin' play the game.
Yeah.
This is not about parents. This is not about coaches. It's just a lacrosse summer tournament. What in the hell are you thinking? Seriously.
You got to get the dub. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Gosh.
You got to get the dub anyway. And if you're not cheating, you're not trying. So
That's what they say, right? I just can't believe it. I mean, it's youth hockey. I mean, youth lacrosse.
Yeah.
The same thing happens in hockey. All the sports, probably soccer, you name it.
Yeah.
But you just,
it boggles my mind. I mean, I saw that definitely and is officiating. That's why I asked you about checking the roster.
Yeah.
Because there are some tournaments that actually do that right away, day one. I mean, it's sad that they have to do that, but there's actually though what they don't even realize there's a lot of liability in line, insurance stuff people don't even think about. It's just, I don't even know what to say.
Nope, I don't either. So yeah, this team, well, guess what? They cheated to get to the championship game, and then they got their butts handed to them by Construct.
Good.
So good.
All right. I love that, boys. Good playing. Good playing.
Joe, so what's forgotten in your world?
Oh, Tosh, I'm going to admit something that I am that guy. I'm that guy that I despise. So my daughter, I was at her Shakespeare today, had my phone, and I recently got a new iWatch. I'm clearly struggling with the iWatch and how that works because I had my iPhone on airplane mode, all good. Right, and I'm front row. Right during the performance, my watch starts ringing, the phone loud. And you talk about scramble mode, freak out mode, instant sweating mode. I got it shut off. I have found the red button lit up. I shut it off. I'm going to throw my son Cooper under the bus because he doesn't just call once. He calls twice if you hang up on him, Tosh. And he called immediately back. Almost swore there. He immediately called back. Phone rings a second time during the performance, live performance, small stage, small room. This phone was loud. God darn it, Tosh. I thought I had it off. I literally thought I had it off, but I clearly didn't have it in airplane mode. And I became that guy that I despise. Shut your electronics off, right? When you're in a movie, when you're in a theater.
Absolutely.
I screwed up, Tosh. I screwed that one up, and holy cow.
Wow.
That was about as embarrassed as I've ever been, I want to say.
Well, now you have a reason for your kids to help you with your technology.
Yes. Oh, you know what the worst part is, too? Great. So the seats are set up, and this is actually going to be my forgotten. I'll get into it, but I was right next to the video camera with recording audio as well. So there's no doubt that phone ring twice is caught on the video.
Yep, of course.
Gotta love that. Maybe, Amelia doesn't listen to this, so maybe I won't tell her the story.
There you go. No, it wasn't me.
All right, Tosh, now that we've all established I can't use technology and I am old and I am forgetful, what's something that maybe you're never going to forget?
Well, never forgetting is an easy one. This week, we have an incredible event here in the Fox Cities in SEAA.
Yeah.
And as you're driving back from Madison and cruised by the campgrounds and seen thousands, tens of thousands of people camping out at EAA grounds and the amount of money that comes into the Fox Valley. How can we can never forget the economic impact. And, I'm not a huge plane person or goals every single year, but I've been there and it's cool. It's a fun event. And we have people from all over the world here in Northeast Wisconsin. So let's show it off and make Northeast Wisconsin proud.
Absolutely, Tosh. Just a cheap plug. We had Matt Tenhanken from the Fox Cities Visitor and Convention Bureau. I think we kind of talked about it. I mean, every hotel room is full. I'm sure every bed and or every Airbnb, whatever, is full, and that's fantastic. And then, not to mention, I mean, there's no better drive on 41. You're right. When you look over your right or left shoulder, whatever direction you're going, you just see a mile of campers and planes. It's insane. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
The world's busiest airport, Tosh.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's fantastic. So, yeah, if you catch this and you want to go check it out, go check out EAA. There's a ton to do for sure. That's my never forgotten or forgetting or whatever it is. Joe, what do you got?
Well, Tosh, I just wanted to really shout out, like I had mentioned just a minute or two ago, Shakespeare at Appleton North. It's actually still going on. You can catch it next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I've used this one before. I've talked about this group before, but absolutely incredible talent. Just literally incredible talent. I can't say that enough. And shout out to those kids. They work so hard. They put their every emotion into it. I mean, the King Lear it is this year, and the kid, I wish I knew his name. I don't have a program in front of me that played King Lear. Literally was just breaking down. He put, after the show during the applause, they put that much effort into it, and it shows. So shout out to Mr. Parker and the whole Appleton North Shakespeare summer program. I loved it, and you can catch it next week if you love Shakespeare. Even if you don't love Shakespeare, check it out. So
sounds good.
Yes. Well, Tosh, I guess an appropriate goodbye would be fare thee well, right?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, fare thee well, folks. Thank you for listening to this 3-part series, kind of unfolded before our eyes and turned into a 3-part series. So safety in football, it's a game that we love. With that, Tosh, another fare thee well. Talk to you next week. Milo Music.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from the past Red Smith Banquets.
A huge thank you to Diggstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify.